Yesterday was the anniversary of your 30-point, 30 rebound, actually 31 points, 31 rebounds game. What do you remember most about that?
I had just come off a game against the Lakers, against Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum, where I didn't score. I laid an egg. So I needed to make my presence known. And, it just so happened that kind of started the, streak of double doubles where, I had 50 plus in a row. And I think that led me into my first All-Star game as well. So that season was certainly a breakout year for me. And I ended up being, I believe, most improved at the end of that season. And here we are, season 18. So I'm still here. I got gray hair. It's matching the shirt, trying to look as good as you do. And I don't know your secret, Dan, but withstood the test of time as well. But a lot of fond memories from my first 6 years in Minnesota. And that game in particular is one of the highlights.
What player do you think gave you the most of your gray hairs?
Defensively, going against Dirk Nowitzki, there was just nothing you could do to stop that. And then I would say on the offensive end, it was probably because I was the fifth pick. I was the new guy in Minnesota. I came into the league. Boston was a superpower in the East. It was Kevin Garnett. So those two guys gave me a lot of gray hairs. But I also believe in that time frame when I came in 2008, 2009 for several years. I mean, it was Zach Randolph, it was Pau Gasol, it was Tim Duncan, it was Blake Griffin, it was LaMarcus Aldridge, it was Dirk. And that's just the Western Conference. And I'm leaving a number of guys out, but at that position, it was, it certainly aged me.
Go back to the NBA Finals when you were with the Cavs, Game 7, final minute, and you get switched off with Steph Curry.
Sure. I tell everybody all the time that, we had gone over that play. I can't tell you how many times. And we were switching 1 through 5. I knew that they were going to call my number up. They didn't want Tristan Thompson to switch off. They didn't want, LeBron, really anybody else, Kyrie, J.R. Smith. They wanted to call me up. And, I was able to switch off onto Steph. I kept my feet down and I knew he was going to try and get to his bag. I knew he was going to try and get to, his 3-point shot that year. He was unanimous MVP. They were 73-9 team.
But your arms are flailing like you're doing karate.
Listen, like if it's like old school when Will Ferrell goes up there and does the debate and he like fully blacks out. That is exactly what happened. And actually, I tell everybody all the time that Steph gave up that ball. He gave it back to Draymond. And what I was supposed to actually do was deny the ball back to Steph. So in terms of EQ and knowing the game and the situation and all that was at stake, I always tell everybody it was actually like I kept my feet down, my arms were flailing. Like I said, I blacked out. I contested a heavily contested shot. So I did my job, but they don't realize that it was actually in some ways a bad defensive play in terms of our concepts and what we were trying to get done. I was supposed to deny that ball back. Steph Curry was never supposed to get that ball back. So, there's a number of plays in that game that stick out to me. Obviously the block by LeBron, the shot by Kyrie that put us ahead. And it was just, that was all I could do to do my part. I had a tough series, but at the end of the day, people remember that last game, and that stop was a huge moment in my career.
All right, let's clear up something that happened last year. There was a headline that was written: Kevin Love graciously reacts to Dan Patrick's disappointing Cooper Flag comparison. Okay. Were you
People are so sensitive, man. I didn't take any type of, I didn't feel any sort of way about that. As you know, I've been a friend of the show. I've been a friend of yours. I'd like to call you a friend for a long time.
Did you know what I was trying to say?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. That's where things get taken out of context and, people and I mean in general, people like the common fan that add so much to our game, and sports in general, they want to take that and make it something that it's not. So I didn't take any offense to that. I know that I've had a damn good career. I feel like I've left some stuff on the table, but of course, no, 100%. I understand what you were saying, but I've seen Cooper play in college when they played Miami. I've met with his parents a number of times. I've seen him up close. I've watched him since he's been 15 years old, and I know the Mavs are having a tough go, but it's
But
just a
there's so
small.
much pressure on him. And the point,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
blaming us, the media. We won't be satisfied if he made 5 NBA All-Star teams and
yeah,
won a title, played on the Olympic team. I mean, you're going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm blaming the media because we won't be satisfied.
right.
And I
And I
think people took
yeah,
it differently.
yeah, I think that's true, and that unfortunately, in some cases, is the world that we live in. But
It would be better if you were actually mad at me. This would be good content, Kevin.
yes, exactly right, and I think that's what people want, right? But I'm just listen. I'm very comfortable in my career, very comfortable where I'm at now. Um, and I hate looking back in the rear view, and I think that in some cases that creates complacency. But no, I knew exactly what you were saying, and I think I even said like, and I believe that and feel that with every ounce of my being. Like I've always been a fan of the show and will continue to be. There's no hard feelings because I know the context in which you said it
Good.
in and what people wanted to get out of it on the other side. But again, like if you want me to be pissed off, we could make some good headlines here.
What's your favorite memory of Kobe when you played on the Olympic team with him?
Oh man. Okay, so best memory with Kobe was we had finished the gold medal game. We had beat Spain. The Gasol brothers, Ricky Rubio, all those great uh, teams that they had 2008. It was kind of running it back in 2012. And so when we're thinking we're going back to the locker room, we're thinking we're doing the champagne shower, and that was I hadn't had that moment before. 2016 was really that first moment where I had felt that type of the joy of winning and winning big at that type of a level. So we're walking off, and we do the media after the game as we walk off and are headed to the locker room, and they say, "Mr. Bryant, Mr. Love, come with us." We're thinking we're doing media, and we get drug tested. We get drug tested, and we have to. So we have um, a couple people on the staff, I forget exactly who it was, bring us champagne. And we just had to sit there. And I think we probably got about, 30-ish, maybe half an hour of just Kobe and myself talking all things just about life and kids and career. That was a very special moment for me, especially all things considered now with obviously the terrible tragedy that happened with him. But I look back with that as a very fond memory in my basketball life and journey because he was a giant in my eyes and a lot of people's eyes. And I grew up a fan. I loved his game, loved the way that he chased it as number 8, as number 24, and he certainly holds a special place in my heart in terms of my overall basketball career and journey these last 30 years.
What was it like to get yelled at by LeBron?
I still get yelled at by LeBron. I'll see him when we head to for other reasons, of course. But when I first got to Cleveland, I had bad habits. Like I look back, I had bad habits. I didn't know what it meant to sacrifice. I didn't truly have my first few years, but in my 6 years in Minnesota, like a vet to show me the way and to deal with adversity and to understand, what it meant to be a good pro and also a good teammate. So I think some of those moments and, him yelling at me and wanting me to be better was, I would hope because he saw something more in me. And also that I was rough around the edges. I needed to grow up in a lot of ways, but I think that took looking in the mirror and understanding that things weren't adding up as I would have liked. And I think the adjustment curve and period was tough for me that first year. I went from being a guy that was a 20 plus point scorer, 10 plus rebounds, and an all NBA guy. And I had to step and sacrifice and play on the perimeter and let a basketball magician in Kyrie getting downhill. I've never seen a below the rim finisher quite like him. He's so special. And then a freight train and LeBron do their thing. And it was about spacing for us. And we ended up being a machine. We were a team that was thrived under chaos. Sure, I think that's part of what we're talking about. But certainly those are some of my favorite memories, because I do feel like personally and professionally I have come a long way. But it definitely added to a little bit these grays here in that silver fox.
What are you doing with Shift Naturals?
So I invested in the company Shift Naturals out of Bend, Oregon. I grew up, just down the street in Portland, Oregon, and it's I'm talking about longevity here, right? And really unwinding from the grind. And for me, this was an easy, thing to be a part of. It's a hemp-based beverage brand, and it's focused on that unwinding. Sparkling waters, ready to drink cocktails and gummies meant to help you relax and feel good without, a hangover. And I think that motto really defines them, that unwind from the grind, and it's better for you. It's great tasting, and, it's something that I implement into my everyday life.
How did you, I was going to say courage. I don't know if you'd use that, but you came forward with mental health.
Sure.
And it's something that especially guys don't talk about. But
Right.
can you help me understand maybe the week leading up to that where you actually said, I need to talk to this about this, bring this to people's attention?
Yeah, well, it was All-Star of 2018, and if you can remember that time in February, there was a lot leading up to that in my personal and professional life. I'd been named an All-Star that year, but even prior in the summertime, there was, things going on within, my family and my extended family, people within arm's distance, whether I was going through it or they were going through it, or we were estranged or not speaking or on bad terms. And then, we trade Kyrie Irving, and we still have the expectations of if not making the NBA finals, then, going and winning the NBA finals. And so our team, a lot of new faces, a lot of new parts. And we did not have a good start to the season. And I think that that was tough. I had broken my hand. I had the panic attack in November of that year against the Atlanta Hawks, and everything kind of led up to All-Star, that year. So I had the game taken away from me, and I was just, so much of the time I was able to just lean into basketball as a safe space. So that being taken away, the team didn't know what was going on. My teammates didn't know what was going on. I was afraid that I was going to be, found out. I didn't want anybody to know, because how it was going to affect my livelihood. And, those things said, there was rumblings around All-Star as well. I started getting questions about, where my head was and, how I was really feeling. And I think people started to catch wind of it. And I mentioned Parkland, Florida, because I'm like, okay, what is really going on in our country and that community, and those kids, those parents, who's all affected by that. And I thought that there was some good to be done by sharing my story, because I know that all of those people and so many others now that I found out in March of that year when I pressed send on that first person article, just my idea was to just help that next person and help that one person, and maybe you can change the trajectory of their life, and thinking of their families, their friends, their siblings, mom, dad, teachers, community, peers. You just don't know the ripple effect that could have in just changing one life. So that, led me to start the Kevin Love Fund as well. So it's been a great, a great thing and something legacy wise that I know that I'll have after basketball. But I think that's what led me to share, and as well as DeMar DeRozan sharing his story, as well, or just a passive tweet that struck me as something that it felt like it was very courageous. And I got to speak with him at All-Star of that year, and I think he said it in his book that he could sense something was going on. So that kinship, that brotherhood has really evolved as well. And we've continued to do the work the last 7+ years.
It's called Shift Naturals. You can visit enjoyshift.com for more information. Great to catch up with you. Stay in touch.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it.
Kevin Love. I've always enjoyed him. I think he's a very interesting person and probably will make a great coach or analyst when it's all said and done. Speaking of analysts, Chris Sims will join us. Coming up next, we'll try to make sense of what's going on with the Eagles. Also, which team has the most must-win game of the weekend in the NFL? We'll have Chris talk about that next here on The Dan Patrick Show.